Hello and welcome to the Racing Postcast, proudly sponsored by Unibet. My name is James Stevens, journalist and West Country correspondent. And what a weekend it is. It is West Country weekend, where Wincanton is the focal point of Saturday's racing. We've got 5 races live on ITV we're going to preview. We're also going to look at Aintree, 3 races coming from there, including the return of the Grand National Fences. And let's not forget the flat. We've got 3 races from Doncaster to look forward to on the final day of the turf season. But before we go into this week's show, let's just have a quick look back at last week, where it was an incredible week for Graham Rodway on the Postcast. He had 5 winners, including the 10-1 R Champ and a successful nap with Take No Chances. That's the standard I'm looking for, you boys. Let's get stuck right into it. We've got Robbie Wilders, fresh from 2 winners on Tuesday, betting editor Keith Melrose, and returning with us is Unibet's Ed Nicholson. Worth saying, Brett, in your absence, Ed did also have a winning nap. So let's get straight off to Wincanton, where we start. The ground is good, and we start at the 109, the BetMGM Conditionals Jockeys Handicap Chase. Just 5 runners go to posting it, led by Tedley, 13-8 favourite, Bobalco 5-2, Duke of Luckley 9-2, Killer Kane 6s, and Dreaming Blue 13-2. Robbie, 2 winners in the week. Let's kick off with a winner here. What do we like?
Sure, mate. I thought the early prices underestimated Killer Kane a little bit. It is quite a tight race, but I quite like. I mean, Killer Kane's on a pretty decent mark. I thought he ran quite well at Kempton on his return over 3 miles. He actually hit odds on in running, but didn't quite see it out. He's interesting back down to this trip, provided there's a bit of pace on. I think there will be, despite the small field. You've got a couple here that like to go forward. I think he should be up there nice and prominent. I hope there's a decent pace on for him. But I mean, with Callum Pritchard, he's made a fair enough start to life as a jockey with his £5 claim. I think he's quite interesting here. And I could see him shortening quite a bit in the first time blinkers. So Killer Kane for me.
Yeah, Killer Kane 6-1 for Robbie Wilders. Keith, what do we like?
I can't believe it's first time blinkers for Killer Kane. I thought he'd had them on before. I thought the Kempton race might have been his day, actually. So I'm quite keen on Bobalco here, a horse I had my eye on from the spring. Shaped really well a couple of times there, including at the Scottish National meeting, where he went toe-to-toe with the nutcase Salamanca Bay and was still looking like he might have won the race before he belted 2 out. He came back in October, ran a reasonable third at Kempton at a time when a lot of Nichols horses were needing the reappearance. And now he's been sent to this meeting, which, as we know, is one Nichols really targets. So it does look like this is a horse that is plumb on his day here. And, his form is, we've got good informed horses in here like Tedley. And I even thought Dreaming Blue was a little bit big. They've been dismissively priced on the strength of his form from the spring. But it is his reappearance. And I just think Bobalco's form is much, much stronger.
Bobalco 5-2. Paul Nichols has won this last 2 years, so a decent shout there. Ed, what do we like?
Yeah, I think this is Paul Nichols' meeting, isn't it? I mean, you'll know more than anyone, James, being the West Country correspondent. This is a meeting that he does target. I've probably spent much more time on this race than I should have done, but I always like looking at the jockeys, because I think the jockeys are more as important as the horses in these conditional jockeys races. So I will let everyone know about the experience of each jockey, because some of them I didn't know much about. And the most experienced jockey is Ben Bromley, who's had 261 rides, 33 winners. Interestingly enough, he's 9 for 23 with Paul Nichols. The most winners he's ridden is for Paul. Jamie Brace has had 142 rides, 17 winners. He's had 3 from 14 for Nigel Twiston Davis. Then we've got Mr. I didn't even know much about DM McConville, but he's had 125 rides, but just 8 wins for him. He's on Duke of Luckley. Killer Kane, Callum Pritchard, he's been riding well lately. He had a winner at he had a really good winner at Chepstow yesterday. Rode a really good race for Rebecca Curtis getting up on the line. That was on Wednesday afternoon. But he's only had 78 rides and 3 wins. And Chad Bamet's only actually had 11 rides in his career and had 1 win. So all that suggests that the jockey with the most experience is Ben Bromley. Paul Nichols loves the race. Bobalco finished 3rd at Kempton. I was there that day. He looked like he needed the race, which is a lot of the Paul Nichols horses have, funnily enough, this season. So I thought everything pointed to Bobalco, and I made him a good bet here. I think the only slight problem, is that he has shown good form in softer ground than good, and this is over 2.5, isn't it? Which he hasn't raced over. But yeah, Bobalco for me.
Funny enough on this one, actually, I was looking into Callum Pritchard just this morning, and apparently he came from nowhere really to become a champion point-to-point rider a couple of years ago. Just took it up for fun and turned out to be really good at it. And yes, he had that winning ride at Chepstow already. I was very impressed by his winning ride at Newton Abbott last week for Philip Hobbs and Johnson White. It's not many £7 claimers have got the stones to brush Harry Skelton aside and give me a run in the straight, which is what he did that day. I thought he was you don't get many £7 claimers that look good over fences. Normally they'll make their name over hurdles, and then by the time they come over fences, they're claiming 3 or 5 and the cat's out the bag. But Pritchard could be the exception.
I think it's his first ride for Joe Tizon as well, which I thought was interesting. He's obviously making a real good fist of it and impressing a few good trainers.
Yeah, I think he's based with Ben Pauling possibly, and he has ridden out in the past for Philip Hobbs. Yeah, and he's ridden out for Hobbs in the past, so that's why he got those Hobbs rides.
Yeah, not just a good shout here. You both teaming up. You've also given us a conditional to follow for the rest of the season. So credit on both of you there. Let's move straight on to the second race, which is the BetMGM Richard Barber Memorial Mares Handicap Hurdle, named after another West Country point hero. And we've got a hat-trick seeker in here in Pretending for Lucy Wadham. She is the 9-2 favourite. We've got 6-1 Larchmont Lass, Mermaids K for the informed James Owen 7-1, Beth Page 15-2, All the Glory 8-1, and Sabrina 70-2. Last one I'll mention, of course, is Good Luck Charm, last year's winner 11-1. Could be a little bit overpriced. Where do we like in the market here, Keith?
We're going to go back to conditionals with worth keeping an eye on, and Paul Nicholls actually. Sabrina's got really good course form. Jay Tidball's riding now. I think he is. Is he now the conditional at Nicholls Yard? James, can you tell me? Because I've just seen him riding a lot more for Nicholls. I've not seen any official news about it, but he basically does Angus Calada's job now. I think started getting rides for Nicholls in October.
Also Freddie Gingle as well.
And Freddie Gingle's obviously there. But yeah, Jay Tidball has joined Nicholls this autumn and is riding some of those horses now. As I say, he started at the Chepstow meeting in Rillo and has had a few since then and starting to get winners now. Obviously, the fact that Cobden is on Larchmont Lass is taken as a suggestion that that's the first string. But Sabrina's got equal, if not, he's got very good course form. He probably got found out by the trip on our last run at Haydock, and obviously we did our winning last year for Freddie Ginjo. So it's obviously an uncomplicated enough ride to entrust to a conditional. I just thought she had a little bit more going, and the market's possibly overreacted to the jockey bookings.
Sabrina 70-2 in the 145 at Wincanton. Robbie?
Yeah, I like All the Glory here, James, for John Joe and AJ O'Neill. She was a really impressive winner of the Grade 2 handicap at Newbury in March. Absolutely pulled that apart, despite the fact that her connections were kind of worried about the sort of rain softened ground that day. She's more of a good ground mare. But that came off a similar break to what she's encountering today in 94 days. She's won fresh in the past as well, one off a 98-day break. She's off 112-day absence here. Reading the Race Post Stable Tour, they've aimed her at this race, and they're saying they're looking to sort of throw in at listed races later in the season. You can't obviously take all these quotes at face value, but I thought that was quite interesting. She's only rated 121. She's got a bit of class. She's going to like the grounds, and I think pretty much everything's in her favour. So 8-1, I think All the Glory is a fair enough price.
All the Glory for Robbie. Ed, it's a tricky race, but luckily for you, we've got a bit of an offer for this one.
Yeah, it's a great race to have the offer. Money back second or third here. So if you don't back the winner, but you come second or third, you'll get your money back. Terms and conditions apply. Please do go to the website for the full details. And it's a race which I found difficult, obviously, with 9-2 the field or thereabouts. I'm a big fan of Larchmont Lass, but I do worry that, I want to back many of the Paul Nicholls horses here at this meeting, but possibly not those making seasonal debuts. They've needed the run, haven't they? And Larchmont Lass has form on softer ground, which again would be a concern. But as you say, Harry Cobden is jocked up, and she is second favourite. I think Larchmont Lass is a good mare, but I'm going to pass her over this time and go for Pretending, who is in the form of her life. But because of that, she's won her last two off 109, 116, I think. So she's now on 122. But this track should suit. She runs prominently, which Wincanton tends to suit. And Gavin Sheehan is talking about jockeys who made an impression at Chepstow. He rode a fantastic race in the Staying Mares Handicap Hurdle there on Wednesday, coming from near last. But he won the bumper with a great front running ride. And Gavin Sheehan is probably one of the most underestimated jockeys in the weighing room, I'd say. And I really like him on horses that he can bowl along. Pretending doesn't have to lead, can just race prominently, and I think she's on an upward curve. So yeah, Pretending's my choice, but it is a very difficult race.
The 9-2 favourite, Pretending, for Ed. So third race of the day at Wincanton is the 223. This is the Boodles Rising Star Novices Chase at Grade 2. Won in the past by Seymour Business, Silvanyaka, Conti, Froden. The future Grand National winner, should I say, Comply or Die, almost won this. And a really interesting race from a perspective of looking forward, because you've got Handstands, the 15-8 favourite. Insurrection for the Paul Nicholls yard, who do so well in this race, at 11-4. Soul Icon, 7-2. Boomborn, 4-1. And Glyn, the outsider, at 10-1. Are we sticking, Ed, with Paul Nicholls to tried and trusted method in the Rising Stars?
Yep, I think this is a race for Insurrection. I think Paul's had this race in mind for him since the summer. As you quite rightly said, he does target this race. And interestingly enough, he tends to run his horse for this race in the Robert Mottram Chase at Chepstow at the Unibet Jump Season Opener. Last year's winner, Nappers Hill, was placed in that race, the Robert Mottram, and then won this. And those with great memories will remember other horses that's done that as well. And he's run horses like Clan de Obo in the Robert Mottram, so he does run his good novice chases in that race. So Insurrection coming second that day, that was not a bad performance. He jumped well, which is good to know as well. And I just thought that he had a lot of scope over fences. He's obviously going to make a better chaser than he is a hurdler. Paul Nicholls targets this race. He looked a really good selection. I was surprised he wasn't favourite, but then a great racing expert did point out that Handstands should be favourite. But looking at Handstands' form, most of it's on softest ground, so that would be a slight worry. And Handstands making chase debut. So Insurrections had a run, had an experience over fences. Paul Nicholls loved this race. I just thought it's a really good observation to be back in Insurrection here for this Rising Stars Grade 2.
Okay, so Paul Nicholls is trusted there. Just worth pointing out an interesting bit of stats for you. Nappers Hill did win at odds-on last season. Before that, Paul Nicholls has had 3 odds-on shot lose in this race: McFabulous, Mick Pastor and Grand Sancy. So it's not all straightforward. And how about this for a stat? The last time Paul Nicholls had a runner in this race, which was priced 3-1 or bigger, his best chance was priced 3-1 or bigger, was 2004. So talk about wanting to win this race. Keith, are we with the Nicholls camp, or are we taking him on?
I mean, sometimes I'm taking on these Nicholls horses because it's a little bit obvious. Anybody could just back. You get a monkey to back the Nicholls horses in this card, I suppose. But so that's why I'm maybe just trying to find things that are different, because my angle in this one is to think that these horses are on a stepping stone to something else. You know, Handstands is going to be going for bigger races down. He's just starting out. Same goes for even though Insurrection and Boomborn have both run, they might be looking at other races down the line. Soul Icon's coming off a break. He had a run in the summer, but he was second in the summer plate, wasn't he? But he's also coming off a break. Might just be inclined to throw a few quids on or being a bit of a surprise here. Now, that might be Soul Icon, whose form over fences is technically the best in the field. But I mean, it also would include Glyn, whose form isn't actually that far off the required standard here. We've talked about all the big winners of this race. We also had Hang In There a couple of years ago. Now, Hang In There is basically summer Calto Star now. You know, he's a horse that he's the only horse that runs big figures over fences in the summer at the moment. But he basically took advantage of having a summer campaign, and it was the last of the good ground. And he beat some more fancied horses like McFabulous, who was in there. There was another decent horse in that race when he won it. So sometimes these horses that are fit and ahead of the game can get it done. Now, Glyn is 10. It's just unfashionable for a horse like this to be seen to win a race like this. But his form isn't far off the required standard at all. He's run another great race last week behind Numitor. He's not been long with Anthony Honeyball, who trained the winner of the Badger Beer last year and is the sort of trainer that would target this meeting. I wonder if this is just seen as his last big day out. He'll be absolutely ready to run his best race. And it's not going to be a big bet, but in the hope that maybe some of these more young improving types are working their way up, whereas he's cherry ripe, I might just have a few quid on Glyn.
Well, I can give you a bit of insight because I did Anthony Honeyball's stable tour this week. So we did chat about Glyn, who had a few options. I think the thinking is that he's got the match experience. And if any of these are a little bit not quite ready, or they're not going to jump as smoothly, he's there to take advantage to pick up some prize money. So I can certainly see the case for him, and fitness is on his side. Robbie,
exactly
where are you? Sorry, Keith.
Yeah.
No, I just said it was. Anthony Honeyball's sort of said exactly the same, really. So it's good to hear. It's good to hear that he's gone for that. And yeah, prize money's part of the issue here, but he's also been just dismissively priced.
Sure. Go on, Robbie.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, got someone joining there back there. Yeah, it's an interesting race. I see the case for Glyn. I think Keith makes a good case there. I mean, I guess Handstands is the one that could blow it all apart. He was really good as a novice hurdler. He obviously beat a Grade 1 winner in Django Bate Huntingdon a couple of starts back, was found out at Cheltenham, unsurprisingly, in the Ballymore. But you've not seen him jump a fence yet, so you can't really entertain him. I was thinking on the same lines as Ed, really. Insurrection, I thought that was a really encouraging chase and debut at Chepstow. I think he'd have got much closer to Springwell Bay if he jumped the last properly. He sort of got it wrong. That horse is rated much higher over hurdles. And Insurrection, as Ed said as well, I mean, Paul Nicholls' horses have been needing the run. So I could see him going much better this time. He obviously targets this race, and it's probably significant he's chosen this horse to run in it this year. So I think he's the most likely winner for me.
Second shout for Insurrection, the 11-4 shot in the 2:23. Move on to our fourth and fifth race from Wincanton. This is the 2:55, the Bet MGM Elite Hurdle. Just 4 runners in it. It's led by Rubo. We've also got, who's even money, should I say, Brentford Hope 6-4, Aspire Tower coming over from Ireland for Henry de Bromhead 9-2, and Forever William, the rank outsider at 66-1. Rubo trying to win this race in back-to-back years, but he's conceding weight to a horse who's actually rated higher than him in Brentford Hope. Keith, how do you look at it? Is it as straightforward as Rubo wins again, or are we looking more at Brentford Hope as a real danger?
Neither. Aspire Tower's a mad price. He's been given a run to get him ready. De Bromhead showed with that. He brought a few over to Cheltenham the other week and had the first and second in the big handicap chase there. I suspect there wouldn't be at all surprised if he's wanting a bit of the action that Gavin Cromwell's been having. Just sending horses over to Britain, and you're going to see Mullins doing that as the season goes on, just coming across to hoover up prize money over here. It's 41 grand to the winner of this race. It's not the sort of pot Aspire Tower is going to land in Ireland, but as we know and have known for many years, the British 2-mile hurdlers are garbage, basically. Rubod's just about the best we've got, and with all due respect to him, likeable though he is, he's going off 100-1 in a champion hurdle. So Aspire Tower is just a mental price. He's the one. He's the bet at the prices. Also rated higher than Rubo, I should say, as well, with 148.
Robbie, sticking with the Irish as well?
Nah, I think those ratings don't really add up completely to me. I don't see how Brentford Hope's a better horse than Rubo based on what they've achieved. I mean, there's nothing to split Rubo and Brentford Hope really in the betting, but I've always had Brentford Hope down as someone being a bit better on softer ground. He's not going to get that here. If you only look at Rubo's good ground runs, he's actually a pretty good horse. I think he's up to giving the weight away here for Nicholls. Thought there was a lot of. It was just a really good return run at Kempton. He was faced with a tougher task this year under a penalty to follow up. I mean, it wasn't the best of races, granted, but I mean, I expect him to be cleaning up in this sort of race. And respect to Spire Tower, so I see him as a bigger danger than Brentford Hope, but I just think he's much past his best, and Rubo is slightly on the upgrade, much younger horse. So, yeah, I think Rubo at odds against is pretty fair.
Rubo for Robbie. Ed?
Yeah, I agree with Robbie. I think Rubo is a deserved favourite. If the ground was a little bit softer, I could see Aspire Tower. I could definitely see the reasons why Keith's selecting Aspire Tower, but just looking at his form, he does seem to need softer ground, and Rubo won at Kempton on his debut, which not many Paul Nicholls horses have done. Obviously doesn't mean anything in its own right, but you would think that he's going to come on. You'll be able to tell us, James, because you know everything West Country. I thought this horse was going to go novice chasing, so I'm surprised that he's been sticking to the hurdles. And Paul's had a lot of horses that he could run at this race or this meeting, and he's chosen Rubo. And I just thought that he won by 7 lengths at Kempton. I was there that day, and I just thought that was actually better than he posted previously. Last year, the Elite Hurdle, he should have won. I mean, he was miles clear on ratings, so this will be a much more difficult race. But you do get horses coming back and kind of winning this race time and time again, certainly for 2 or 3 seasons. So Royal, do you remember, did it, I think 4 years difference. He won it one year, and then 4 years later he won it, if memory serves me right. We used to sponsor this race, so I remember the runners in this race. So yeah, I just thought Rubo was a decent bet. The ground's significant. I think it's going to be good but more towards faster than soft, isn't it, James? I would have thought.
Usually is. And just to answer your question about Rubo, the plan was this season to have a couple of runs over hurdles. Those 2 races he won last year, i.e. this and the race at Kempton, mostly because they're very winnable opportunities, and he was going to go off a short price, so it was a spot kick almost. So why not have a go for a big pot and a big bit of prize money? That's always a big focus for Paul Nicholls. He knows where the prize money is. And Ed, you're with Robbie that Rubo is going to collect a little bit more ahead of going novice chasing, which was the intended plan. I'm sure we'll find out more after Saturday. But we come on to our last race from Wincanton. This is their big race of the season. It's the 3:30 at Wincanton, the 63rd Badger Beer Handicap Chase, the biggest race of the season. It's a big staying handicap chase. Who better to ask than Keith Melrose?
Looking at the prices in this race, and I just couldn't believe the price of Forward Plan. Now, Anthony Honeyball won this with Blackjack Magic last year. Forward Plan finished 6th, but he was plainly just out to get started. And he was just getting started because this horse, in his last 4 runs last season, he won a good race at Donny. Might have been on the telly, but it was certainly a telly card. He finished 2nd in the old Sky, but now the Great Yorkshire Chase. Won the old Racing Post Chase, and then finished 3rd in the Freebooter on Grand National Day, and actually looked like he was going to come and get cruise control that day. Just really, really solid record for a horse that is a better on better ground, and is still going the right way. Yes, it's his reappearance, and yes, in his reappearance last year, he needed the run, but they don't have Blackjack Magic in the race this year, the same yard. Just looked like this is a good opportunity for him to get another big handicap chase on the board. And I thought the price was far, far too big. I am really scared of the changing man because I've got him in my notebook this season for dropping back from 3 miles to 2.5. But they've had his win done and stuck a ton tie on him. It's just as possible he couldn't breed last year. So I am worried about him. I hope I'm actually right about the 2.5 mile thing, and that when he goes back in trip, he gets more joy. But for now, I know Forward Plan wants 3 miles. I know he's deadly on good ground. I know he was still going the right way at the end of last season. He just makes much more sense as a bet.
Interesting. Fascinating what you said about the changing man, because connections are eyeing up a shot at the Coral Gold Cup with him. Forward Plan, interesting shout. He is a 9-1 shot. I'll just spin through the price before I go to Robbie. We've got the changing man at 3-1, Lord Accord 100-30, Mufasa for Paul Nicholls 9-2, Lord Baddesley, another Anthony Honeyball runner 17-2, Remastered 9-1. Forward Plan as Keith's selection, also 9-1, and then we go Risk in the Ground at 11s. Robbie, what do you like here?
Good race. Yeah, I mean, I'm on Lord Accord anti-post. I thought he was the wrong price at the start of the week. He was obviously an excellent second in it to Frodon a couple of years ago, off £8 higher, and he got the last wrong that day. I seem to remember. It could have got quite interesting, I think. He come down a lot in the weights, but he's bounced right back to form recently. Absolutely bolted up over the course and distance last time after getting his confidence back over hurdles. I think he's the one to beat, but I wasn't expecting Forward Plan to run. I mean, Anthony Honeyball had 5 different entries at the start of the week. I think it's interesting that he is turning up because he will like this surface. I'll be happy enough to ignore, like Keith, the sort of below par effort on his return last season. He's just been running really well in much better races than this. So if I was having a bet now, it'd be Forward Plan, but I'm happy enough for my position on Lord Accord. So he's the main selection for me.
Also, Honeyball ran 3 in the race last year, didn't he? He's used it. Yeah. Right? He's so the fact that he's sort of picking him, and he'll known full well what he was doing and who he had, and I think that it just is a strong pointer. Yeah,
agreed.
Absolutely, and worth mentioning, Robbie, that your anti-postman out every week if you want to get that little bit more value. Squeeze it out before the Thursday show. Ed, some interesting thoughts about Forward Plan. The 2 boys suggesting him. Are you going to complete a hat trick? And you're on mute.
I can certainly see why he's in the mix. Definitely.
I just go back. I'll read it a bit. 2 shouts then for Forward Plan. Ed, are you going to complete the hat trick?
Well, I can certainly see why he'd be in the mix. Anthony Honeyball's horses are going well at the moment. He would have targeted this meeting, being from where he is. He's also got Lord Baddesley as Anthony Honeyball. I was actually speaking to Anthony at Wincanton, the last meeting. Where we ran our Veterans Chase middle distance race, and he was saying that he's thinking of Lord Baddesley for that next year, which is over 2.5. So if you look at his form, all his form for Chris Gordon was over 2.5. So that would be my slight worry. If he's thinking about the 2.5 mile races that we have in the final at Haydock in April, then maybe they think he'd be better over 2.5. But he's a shorter price and forward plan, which is quite interesting. But anyway, the one that I fancied was Lord Accord, same as Robbie. Won't talk too much about it. Exactly the same as Robbie. He's well handicapped. He's bounced back to form. He jumps well. He likes the track. Came second in this race in 2022 behind Frodon. The stable are in great form. Low weight. He's probably too short a price now to get really involved in, given the competitive nature of the race. But yeah, Robbie's done the homework, and obviously he's on at a much bigger price. So Lord Accord for me.
Lord Accord at 100-30. That was the 3:30 at Wincanton. That's those 5 races previewed. We'll be looking at Aintree, but first, a quick word about the Racing Post Insider. Okay, so we now move on to Aintree, where the ground is good to soft in place on the main course, and good to soft, good in places for the return of the Grand National Fences. We start at the 1:30 at Aintree. This is the Pertemps Network Handicap Hurdle. It's one of those qualifiers, the third qualifier of the season. Nigel Twiston-Davies had a runner-up in the first one at Cheltenham, and he's got the favourite for the third with Guard the Moon at 3-1, Harbour Lake 4-1, Reverend Huber 11-2, Magical King 11-2, Bold Endeavour 6. Stolen Silver 9-1. Stuart Evans won the race last year with Magical King. Robbie, is that where you're siding, or are we looking somewhere else?
Yeah, I had a good look at him earlier in the week, Magical King. Quite an interesting horse. Whether he wants the ground this quick, I'm not totally sure. I thought Bold Endeavour was the value, and I still think he is, to be honest, for Laura Morgan, who is a good trainer. She's not got the big race wins on her CV, but I'm sure that will change eventually. She likes to target this meeting, as we know. Percussion, who runs in the Grand Sefton later, we're going to get onto in a bit, has finished second and third in that in the last couple of years. This horse has joined again from Nicky Henderson. He started his life as a racehorse with Morgan a couple of years ago. Ran some really good races over 3 miles last term. He was fifth in that good race at Haydock on Betfair Chase Day, fourth in the Pertemps final, second in the December meeting at Cheltenham. He's off a feasible mark. I think this is weak in a lot of races he's contested over the last few times. And crucially, he's going to like the surface. He's won on good to firm in the past. That was his most impressive success for Nicky Henderson. So I think as an each way play, there's a lot in his favour, Bold Endeavour.
The consistent Bold Endeavour at 6-1. Ed, how do you assess this one?
Difficult race. With Paul Nicholls at Wincanton on this day, I always consider Nigel Twiston-Davies horses for Aintree on this day. And I think Guard the Moon is the correct favourite or top end of the market in this race, a qualifier for the Pertemps. He's won his last 2, won a maiden at Hexham, really, well, only by a length and a quarter, but was a big odds on to win that day. And then won a handicap last time out when dropped down in distance. So back up to around 3 miles again, which would probably be his trip. The ground was a slight concern because he had been running on softer ground until that Hexham win and then his win last time out, but he showed that he can deal with it. So yeah, Guard the Moon for me. I just think he's an improving sort.
Guard the Moon to complete the hat trick for Ed at 3-1. Keith?
You're going to offer us 4 places here, Ed. 4 places in a Pertemps qualifier. That's what we all want to see.
Well, there's not at the moment, not according to my record. But I'll have a word. Well, there's only 9 runners. That's why.
I know. That's why I was jesting, because 4 is the magic number in this race. It's where you need to get qualified for the final, so it's where everybody will have their eye on. And I thought the one I would want to be with here is Harbour Lake, who they're getting qualified for the final, I assume, given he generally has good springs. You know, he was second at Cheltenham in April there, and then second or third again, third I think it was, in another similar race at Haydock on Swinton Day. He's a horse on his, last season he reappeared and he was pulled up, but that was over fences. They quickly drew stumps with his chasing career. On his previous 2 seasons, he'd won first time out, so he is a horse they can get ready. They'll have him certainly ready enough to finish in the first 4 here, because I assume going back to Cheltenham in March for the final is the aim with Harbour Lake. And I thought he was a very interesting each way bet. As I say, we're asking an awful lot to get 4 places, but that is the aim with him, to get him qualified for that. And he has been ready enough to win first time up in 2 of his 3 seasons, and the other one was over fences, which he didn't take to. So I thought there was a lot going for him.
Harbour Lake for Alan King at 4-1. On to the 205 at Aintree now. The BoyleSports Choose Wisely Handicap Chase over 2 miles. Only one novice in this race, but it is the favourite Imperial Saint who heads the market at 15-8. We've got Coast Guard Station 7-2, Hunter Legend also 7-2, Jack Holiday 15-2, Magistrato 11-1, and the rest 12 bar. Go back to you on this one, Keith. Imperial Saint somewhat lucky last time. Is the novice in the race? Is it the horse with potential though?
Yeah, he just wins, didn't he? The horses against him aren't frightening me. Venetia's is quite interesting, but it's still a bit early for Venetia. This horse, that race that he won here last time, it's a good race. It was a new race last year. I think they changed the trip, and Master Chewy won it. And this year he's come out. I think he was probably going to beat Move It Like Minnie when she ran out. I thought, it was going to be a close run thing. He had his head slightly high, Imperial Saint, but he took to it so well. He's going to be a good chaser. He's going to probably want a bit further than 2 miles in due course, but he's also going to be rated a lot higher than 128. So I'm quite happy with him at the trip. He obviously won over the course and distance last time, and what's quite a strong early novice handicap. Those are good form lines, and it sometimes gets underrated how good they are. I just think he's going to win this.
Yeah, I had this horse in my tracker for a while last season. He was knocking on the door for a while, and it finally came good. He might just be continuing to fly up the ratings now. So I can certainly see why he's a short price favourite, and I'd have to say I'd follow in with him. Robbie, Imperial Saint for you or something else?
Yeah, he's definitely the one to beat. I thought the one that might have been slightly overlooked, though, was the Irish horse Jack Holiday. His trainer, David Christie's got a pretty decent record when he sends the horse over to Britain. He's had 4 winners, 2 places, 15 from 15 runners. And Sean Bowen's obviously quite an eye-catching booking. This horse is completely hard fit. He won really easily at Killarney a couple of starts back. Jumped superbly that day. He's in the form. He might be 10, but he's in the form of his life. He's done career best RPRs by miles in his last 2 starts. And I think he ran all right at Kelso last time behind 2 horses who are really well handicapped in Pay the Piper and Gold des Bois. Going back to the Bear, 2 miles is going to suit at Aintree. And I could see him giving people a run for their money at around 8-1.
Jack Holiday at 15-2 in each way. Interesting angle there from Robbie. Ed, what are you looking at?
Yeah, just similar. Imperial Saint, think he wins. Shortish price, but if you're going to be backing a shorty, you want to make sure the stable's in form, and this stable is in form. 4 winners from 13 runners in the last 14 days, and other horses have been placed. So, yeah, Imperial Saint, course and distance winner, only up £4 for victory. That's the one for me. Well,
all the panel seem keen on Imperial Saint for the Hobbs and White team. Let's see if we can all share an agreement on what is notoriously a tough race to find the winner for. This is the BoyleSports Grand Sefton Handicap Chase. The final race we'll be looking at Aintree at 240. A really competitive race. This is exactly what the Grand National Fences are all about. And luckily, Ed, you're at least giving us an extra place.
Well, we're given an extra place in this race, Keith, so you'll be happy with that. Yeah, it's a lovely race to view, isn't it? I mean, I love these fences, and it's just great, especially when you get lots of runners and, you know, they're good jumpers. And this over 2.5 miles, they'd just be going that little bit quicker, won't they, than they do over the longer distance races over the Grand National Fences. I had one at a big price here that I thought was worth certainly an each way bet. Number 7, Idalco Behu, who is from Nigel Twiston Davis's stable. Incidentally, he's had more runners in this race than any other trainer since the turn of the century, 20 runs. But he's only had 1 winner, which is slightly worrying. Yeah, that was Little Josh. But he's had a couple that have been placed. And this horse is relatively lightly raced. I think he's only had 4 chases. He's won 1. It goes well fresh. Nigel Twiston-Davies will obviously have him for this race, knowing that the ground would be what he needs as well, good ground. He is a relatively inexperienced to go over the Grand National fences, but that's the trend these days, isn't it? You get yourself well handicapped in these horses now that contest these races. They're not the old plodders over 2.5, 3, 4 miles that jump well, but they're kind of improving handicappers that might be well placed. And I think this is just the type. If you watch his last run, which did come at Cheltenham, the Silver Trophy, he's got a form figure of 5th. If you stop the race before the last, you won't believe that he came 5th. He was second last. He had one horse behind him, and he was being pushed along. And then the camera obviously pans to where the winner, the really good winner, went past. And then you just wait for it. And he's 5th. And I can't believe he came 5th. Obviously, the horses stopped and he ran on, but that argues well for this galloping, this distance over 2.5 with the fences, putting the test on stamina over 2.5. I just thought that there's a lot going for him. He was dropped £2 for that as well. So he's on 132. Yeah, I just thought at the prices 10, 12, 14 to 1, with the extra places, he was worth a bet.
Hidalgo Bue at 10 to 1 and was a good winner at Cheltenham last season as well, and had some really good form as a novice hurdler, so it could be a really interesting outsider, as Ed rightly says. Just go through the market quickly. Fro Banbo, I think I'm pronouncing that right, 11 to 2 favourite. We've got Late Night Pass, last seen in the Grand National, 13 to 2. Percussion, also a 13 to 2 chance, always seems to run well over these fences. And King Turgeon at 13 to as well. Such a good market this. Short Touch at 7s, Outlaw Peter at 15 to 2. And Hidalgo Bue at 10s, as Ed rightly picks out. Keith, I mean, Percussion's an interesting horse in this, just continues to run well in this race. We've also got Harper's Brook in here. I mean, surely not over the Grand National fences. Fascinating race, isn't it?
Yeah, how late are you going to present Harper's Brook? Now, this is just an absolute minefield of a race. You've got Harper's Brook, first time after having his win done, first time for Dan Skelton. You've got Outlaw Peter for Paul Nicholls. Now, I thought he got run once or twice too many last spring, and I hope he doesn't feel that this autumn. So I'm going to give him I like him, but I'm going to give him a swear first time out just to get that doubt out of my head. I would have been really keen on Hidalgo Bue. Like Ed, I think there's unfinished business with this horse this year. I think I've got a funny feeling he might have been late in, because he was reported when I was doing the big jump off handicap chasers to follow. I'm pretty sure he was still reported as out of training at that point, because I looked at the BHA horse database, and I think he was still down as out of training, having been taken out of training 5 days after the Silver Trophy. So I wouldn't be amazed if he had been late in and is potentially therefore going to likely need this. So that's the only thing that puts me off him. I like that performance from King Turgeon, first run after wound surgery at Chepstow. You watch it and you think, I didn't think at the time Grand Sefton, but the way he jumped in front, you wouldn't be at all amused if the course ended up suiting him. With the race being such an absolute minefield, I am going to instead have a small bet on a very risky proposition here, because it's obviously it's no great risk in a race that could go to just about any of these. I'm going to have a little bit each way on Richmond Lake at big prices. This horse absolutely scooshed in at the December meeting here last season. The ground was horrific that day, and I think it finished his season. I honestly think he finished his season. He didn't turn up on his next few runs, and then his last run was in the Topham. He did well to get round the tall that day, to be honest, the way he jumped, but the fact he didn't pull him up, that was a sight around the Grand National fences. This is a hemming zone.
Beecher Chase Day, wasn't
it? Was it Beecher Chase Day?
In December?
Yes, sorry, Beecher Chase Day when he won. Yeah, it was Gustavian. He absolutely battered all over the place. It was just, they finished. I did the sectional myself. They finished at like 88%, like they were going a second and a half a furlong slower from 3 out. It was that desperate. It was horrible, horrible ground. And as I say, I think he just wanted a bit of freshening up after that. Didn't really get it, but he did get a sighter around the course in the Topham. Didn't jump terribly well, to be quite honest, which is the only real downside. I've been waiting to have a go at this horse fresh once he had a break in him. He runs in a race at Aintree, a race that he looks to have been given a real sighter for. And massive odds. Look, I could have got it totally wrong. I might go off 66s and just get, another sort of sighter for going back to the Topham or something. But I thought in a race where there is no horse that doesn't come with a pretty big risk attached to it, he was as good as any at monster odds.
I thought, I looked at Keith this horse, but I like him as well. but all his form's on soft ground. He's been taken out the last twice he's run on good. So I was just concerned that the ground might be a little bit too quick for him.
Yeah, well, they ran him in the Sky Bet, didn't they? And obviously he has, I've mentioned, he did run on absolutely hideous ground on Beecher Chase Day last year. So they clearly do think there's something in that. I'll generally put ground down my list of concerns. He has, he just said they were happy to run him in this calendar year on good ground, and it's at Donny, so you're not turning up at Donny and surprised to see good ground, are you? So it's there, but it's down my list of concerns.
Interesting. 20-1. That's exactly what I want to see for an extra place race. We're going to review, Robbie. You're on the edge of your seat at one point, so I'm on the edge of my seat. Wait and see what you got for us.
I just love that case from Richmond Lake. The one I like is quite a big price as well. Authorised Art for Gary Moore. He had absolutely no chance on his stable debut last month. He was running against Rubo over 2 miles at Kempton. That obviously wasn't his bag, but I thought he kept on pretty nicely into third that day. It was obviously just to tune him up for a race like this. He has been aimed at it, according to the race supposed stable tour with the Moors. And, this horse, he had some good form for Willie Mullins. He's second in the Galway Plate, placed and won a lot of decent handicaps. Just think class counts for plenty in this sort of race. He's top weight, but he's got Caelan Quinn claiming for it off in very good conditional. He's never run around Aintree, but he's a very good jumper. He's never fallen in his career before. He's a prominent racer, loves the conditions. I think he'll give people a good run for their money. Authorised Art for me, James.
16-1. Some really big prices there for that extra place race in the Grand Sefton. Fantastic race to look forward to over the Grand National fences. And now we move on to the flat, where we start at Doncaster, the first of 3 live races there. It's the 120, the live score bet Wentworth Stakes. It's the 9-4 room service for Kevin Ryan. Zoom 4-1, Russet Gold 9-2, Corker 15-2, Ramzan 8-1, and 10 Bob Tony, should I say, 9-1 Bar. How are we looking, Keith? What do we like on the flat?
Quite a good betting race to finish. The flat, considering it's a very, very fag end of the flat season here, the card at Donny stood up really well. This is a good betting race. I can see why room service. He looked like he had unfinished business when he ran the Air Gold Cup, and then he ran a smashing race behind Strike Red, who bit of a sort of a race expert, if you will. He's that race at York, tail end of the season, soft crowd, exactly Strike Red sort of race, and he just ran into him that day. So I can see why he's favourite. At the prices, very slight preference for Russet Gold, who ran a big race at Ascot last time, third at Group 3 level on the Ben Goff Stakes behind Apollo 1. Getting held up, it's not going to... the straight track at Ascot, you can do better from off the pace in a lot of places, but over sprint trips, it's not quite so strong. Whereas at Donny, I find they do give a lot more joy to horses coming sort of from off the pace the way he's likely to be ridden. It's great Group 3 form when the rest are sort of handicappers. It's not particularly strong, but I think it's a really tough and competitive race. But at the prices, Russet Gold just gets the edge for me.
Russet Gold at 9-2. Ed, tell us quickly, this is the best industry price. So punters at 9 o'clock, tell us what they're going to get from Unibet.
Yeah, from 9 a.m. on Saturday. This is the latest of our kind of offers that we've been introducing during the podcast. If you have a bet on any horse in this race from 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, you'll get the industry best price. There are all the big firms are the firms we compare it with. Do go onto the site for more details. But let's say Zoom was 3-1 with us and it was 7-2 with someone else. If you go on at 9:01, you'll get the 7-2. So there is really nowhere else to bet on this race, because from 9 o'clock on Saturday you won't get a better price elsewhere. Zoom is going to be my selection as well. 4-1, not much to say. I find these races quite difficult back end of the season, so my normal play in these is to go for horses that have recent form on soft going, that are still in form. So Zoom won last time out over course and distance, like soft goings, won 3 from 8 I think on turf, up in grade, but up in on the handicap, another £6 up I think. But it does love the soft ground. And the trainer's in what form the trainer's in. I think it's 13 wins from, let me look at my notes, 13 wins from 37 runners in the last 14 days for Race Beckett. Zoom in what is a competitive race.
including at the Breeders' Cup with Starlust in the big sprint there. So hoping for another sprint success. It's Ed Nicholson. Zoom at 4-1. Robbie?
Yes, mate. One of the guys I haven't touched upon I thought was interesting was Ramazan. He's got plenty of form on soft ground. He sort of hasn't had events pan out too well for him recently. He was on the wrong side in the Stewards' Cup, 3rd of 16 in his group. In the Great St Wilfrid, he won his group 5. In the Air Gold Cup, all the action unfolded up the stand side. He was sort of middle to far. He ran okay at Redcar last time, I thought. 7 furlong probably might just stretch him a little bit. I think 6 furlong on soft ground at Doncaster is pretty good conditions for him. And I could just see this panning out quite well for Ramazan.
Ramazan at 8-1 there for Robbie. On to the 310 at Doncaster. This is the Virgin Bet Irish EBF Gillies Fillies Stakes. What a name there. This is quite the contest because we've got John and Fady Gosling represented with Danielle 7-4. We've got a Godolphin runner here in Diamond Rain at 3-1. Albany for the Rafe Beckett, as we've talked about, already been a fantastic season. And then at 7-1, Estrange, the horse who made the hugely eye-catching maiden win at Goodwood. So as Keith mentioned, we started, the flat race was pretty good. This one isn't too bad either. And I'll come to you first, Ed, because you've got also a super boost for a super race.
Yeah, Super Boost is an offer that we have regularly here on the podcast. It's basically this particular race, every horse will be boosted from 9 a.m. on Saturday to the next price. So if we're offering 9-4 and Danielle, it will be 5-2. Every horse in the race will be the next price. So what that basically means is the margin is lower than it would be. So it would be a good idea for you to have a look at the prices from Unibet, because there'll be 1 or 2 horses that just by the very nature of that offer will be the best price, but it is the Super Boost. And Danielle is my selection here. Loves soft ground. Ran a hell of a race last time in the St Simon Stakes. Max Vega won, but on the ratings, that was a good run from Danielle. We know that she likes soft ground. This is a drop down to 10 furlongs. She was going as well as a winner at that distance, and a drop in grade as well from grade 3 down to listed. So Danielle's a worthy favourite. It's got the experience. Has to take on less experienced horses who have potential to improve. Diamond Rain's an interesting one because she's already probably at the same level as Danielle, but I just thought Danielle, we know that she goes well in the ground and she's in form at this time of year.
Danielle at 7-4 for Ed. Robbie?
Yes, mate. Quite like Treasure in this for Rafe Beckett. I'm not one to call out Jockeys' rides. Don't like doing it, but I thought she really should have won the 1x2 handicap at Newmarket she contested recently. She was sent off 33-1 from that on her return from a long break. It was her first start since Royal Ascot. Travelling all over the field, got beaten a neck in the end. If Rob Orme went for him a bit sooner, I think she'd have won fairly comfortably. She's obviously got the yard going in outstanding form. Rafe Beckett, he's just flying all season. She actually ran really well in the Lingfield Oaks trial early in the season. Behind You Got to Me, that was a return as well. It was only a second run. She's still very inexperienced. She shouldn't mind getting back on a slower surface either. She won her maiden on heavy this time last year on her debut. Thought the odds about her were, pretty fair in a good little race.
And Rafe Beckett's won this with 22-1 and 12-1 shots in recent years. So Robbie goes for Treasure at 15-2. And finally, we come on to you, Keith.
Just a word for the slightly bigger Beckett horse in the race, actually, Albany, who's got come back from a year off last time at Nottingham in bad ground and won on a rear. And you might think that could be sort of jokey, bad ground form, but this horse, it's typical sort of rousing bred to improve as it gets older. And our best half sibling run its best race on soft ground, or Dam run her best race on soft ground, proper soft ground pedigree. She's not, because she's reappeared so late in the season, she's still fresh enough. She has a little bit to find on the form, but we can, at the price that you can back Albany, you'll get a nice each way return too. So I thought Albany each way was a bet. Yeah,
6-1 now, Keith. The market has changed a little bit since declarations, but Albany for Keith. And we move on to the last race of the day. This is the Virgin Bet November Handicap. The way the flat turf season typically finishes out with a bang and a really competitive handicap to really get stuck into, I suppose. Valvano 5-1, Master Builder 15-2, Miller Spirit for the Moors 9-1, Stress Free 10s, Lord Melbourne 11, and Chillingham at 12-1. Come back to you, Keith. We talk about tricky handicaps. Best of luck with this one. I haven't got a clue.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? And I've actually had an okay autumn on the flat. I'm usually struggling by this time of year on the flat, but I think I've been trying to exercise this idea that you treat everything from like the ledger onwards as a different season almost. Right. And a horse that really will act in the conditions and is drawn right on the insides, doesn't have to muck about with, finding a position, is Flash Bardo. Her record on soft and heavy ground, she is 3 from 6 when the ground's soft or heavy, and that doesn't include a career best second in heavy ground at Newbury last time behind Miller Spirit. So obviously a horse that suits the conditions. They've not been, she's been racing this season, but you can tell they've been holding back a little bit for a few runs towards the tail end of the campaign, which is exactly what they've done. She's started to make hay, come into exactly the right sort of time. And I thought at a big price, she was worth an each way bet. Flash
Bardo at 16-1 for Keith. Robbie?
Yeah, Flash Bardo is one that really annoyed me because I was on her last time at Newbury. She went really close there. But I'm against this time. I think Waxing Gibbous is the value of the race for David Menizier. And she didn't give a true run in at Newbury last time. I'm just about going to forgive her because it was really bad ground and that race won by Not So Sleepy before he obviously retired. I think if she was coming in straight after the Haydock second to Epic Poet in the old Borough Cup, she'd be quite a bit shorter. She's coming off 49 days off, been freshened up for that. That was a really good run at Haydock, I thought. All the horses who were up the pace fell out the back of the telly apart from her. She's only beaten a neck there. She was miles clear of the third. I think she's still feasibly treated off £4 high for that. And she's got Sean Dillon Bowen, who is one of the best apprentices around as an eye-catching jockey booking as well. High draws have actually fed pretty well in this race. Not had a winner in the last decade from lower than still 10. So I'm not too concerned about a draw in, where is she? She is in 15. I think there's another prize to be won with her. Just a sort of slightly slower condition at Newbury, back in trip should suit.
Waxing Gibbons at 14-1 for Robbie. Ed?
Yeah, ultra competitive race. 23 runners going for this big handicap, last big handicap of the flat season. So we are offering extra place as you would expect, and you'll certainly need it. And a lot of horses could win this race, but I'm going to go for Master Builder, who did me a favour at, was it Haydock a couple of runs back? When William Buick was on board. He gets back on board today. Last time, the Racing Post analysis actually do make the point that he made up a lot of ground in a short space of time with Daniel Tudhope on board, and your publication says that you maybe you should give him another chance based on it. The handicapper actually put him up bound for finishing third. He won at Haydock. He was going really well, being held up off a strongish pace. I think that will happen today. I think the 23 runners, there'll certainly be a relatively fast pace in the soft ground. Drawn 17, he's got no real option but to be held up kind of just a little bit away from the rails. And William Buick's a master at riding any sort of race. I can see him kind of following the pace and being delivered late on. He's still relatively young. He ran really well in the Melrose, which is normally a very good handicap, staying handicap, and has on the past been kind of the opening gambit for horses that end up being cup horses. So I think Master Builder over this distance on this ground with William Buick on board is a solid selection, but it really is a difficult race.
Master Builder on the last ITV race for Ed at 15-2. Right, we'll be back to hear about our best bets and any other selections after a quick word from our sponsors.
Want betting on the horses to be anything but flat? With an app that impresses every time out. You're on. Want to watch live streaming of races in the UK, Ireland and around the globe? And get a chance to win even bigger with 3 Uniboosts every day on any horses you want. Unibet, you're on.
We'll now move on to our best bets of the weekend, and we will start with you, Keith. What is your nap for us this weekend?
I mean, you get more excited about backing the big prices, don't you? But the nap this week is Imperial Saint in the 205 at Aintree. I just think he's going to win.
Imperial Saint at 15-8 at the 205 at Aintree. Robbie?
Let's keep it on the flat, James. I'm going to go for the November handicap 1 or Waxing Gibbous 345 at Doncaster.
Waxing Gibbous at 14-1, 345 at Doncaster. And finally, Ed.
I'm going to go back to the jumps, and it's going to be Insurrection in the Rising Stars Novice, the Grade 2 at Wincanton. Paul Nicholls loves to send a good horse here. He's won it last year with Nappers Hill. He's had a run. He's had a run over fences. It was a good run. They're fit, raring to go, and Insurrection looks likely to go to quite high levels as a chaser, and he's my nap of the weekend.
Good, and I will follow you boys in with forward plan in the 330, the Badger Beers. It wouldn't be West Country Weekend without shouting the Badger Beers. A forward plan for me at 12-1. Thank you very much to our panelists. It brings to us end. So please, as always, do let us know what you fancy in the comments section. Thank you very much to Robbie Wilders, Keith Melrose, and Unibet's Ed Nicholson. You can catch us next week at 7 p.m. on Thursday. We'll be looking forward to some brilliant action at Cheltenham. As ever, do let us know what you think. Rate, view, and subscribe wherever you're listening to us. And until next time, enjoy the racing. Goodbye and gamble responsibly.